universe, in its infinite wisdom and apparent sense of humor, had decided that the most efficient way to organize intelligent life was through a simple food chain. At the top sat the apex predators, being so magnificently terrifying that they could reduce entire civilizations to quivering masses of what could generously be called lunch. These creatures had evolved past the need for such mundane concerns as empathy, self-doubt, or restaurant reviews. They simply hunted, killed, and occasionally paused to admire their own reflection in the blood of their prey. The Vorthak Empire represented the pinnacle of this biological hierarchy. Standing 12 feet tall on 6 muscular legs, with 4 arms ending in claws that could slice through battleship armor, and a mouth full of teeth that made chainsaws look like dental floss, they had spent the last 3 millennia conquering everything that moved, breathed, or had the misfortune to exist in their general vicinity. Their hunting traditions were as elaborate as they were terrifying. Young Vorthak would earn their names by successfully stalking and capturing representatives from the galaxy's most dangerous species. The more lethal the prey, the greater the honor. It was a system that had worked flawlessly for generations, producing warriors whose mere presence could cause lesser species to develop sudden and inconvenient bowel movements, which made it all the more puzzling that these apex predators, these living nightmares that had turned genocide into an art form, would universally refuse to hunt humans. Not because humans were particularly dangerous, mind you. The Galactic database listed them as a mid-tier species at best. Bipedal, soft-skinned, possessed of only 2 arms and an alarming tendency to form emotional attachments to literally anything that moved. Their homeworld was a death trap of weather patterns, predatory fauna, and plants that had apparently decided that photosynthesis was for weaklings. By all logical measures, humans should have been extinct before they invented fire. Yet somehow, they had not only survived but thrived. More disturbing still, they had developed the most terrifying weapon in the known universe. The ability to make other species feel guilty about trying to eat them. Kex'thul of the Crimson Talon had heard these stories, of course. Every Vorthak hatchling was told tales of the soft Deathbringers, who would smile at you while simultaneously planning 17 different ways to turn your digestive system into modern art. But Kex'thul was different. He was hungry, not just for food, but for respect. At 847 years old, he was still considered a youngster by his people, and the fact that he had yet to earn his hunting name was becoming a source of considerable embarrassment. More importantly, he was literally starving. His last 3 hunts had ended in failure, and his pride had prevented him from accepting charity from his clutchmates. The gnawing emptiness in his sick stomachs had long since evolved from discomfort to agony, and desperation had begun to make even the most illogical decisions seem reasonable, which was how he found himself crouched in the cargo bay of a human transport vessel, watching a lone maintenance engineer work on what appeared to be a malfunctioning atmospheric processor. The ship's crew manifest listed her as Zara Chen, age 34, occupation, makes things work that really shouldn't. She was exactly what Kex'thul had been hoping for. Isolated, distracted, and blissfully unaware that several tons of apex predator were currently studying her like a menu. Humans, he noted with professional interest, were even more fragile-looking in person. This one stood barely 5.5 feet tall, with skin the color of weak tea and black hair tied back in what his cultural database unhelpfully classified as a messy bun. She wore coveralls that had seen better decades, and carried a tool belt that appeared to contain everything from sonic wrenches to what looked suspiciously like a rubber duck. Kex'thul's hunting instincts, honed by millions of years of evolution, told him that this would be embarrassingly easy. The human was alone, unarmed, and completely absorbed in her work. He could take her alive without breaking a sweat. Assuming Vorthak could sweat, which they couldn't, having evolved past such inefficient biological functions, he activated his personal cloaking field and began to creep forward, each footstep calculated to avoid the slightest sound. His forearms spread wide, ready to ensnare his prey in an embrace that would be as gentle as it was inescapable. Victory was within reach. Glory awaited. His hunting name would be spoken with reverence for generations to come. That was when Zara Chen, without looking up from her work, said, "You know, if you're going to lurk in my cargo bay, the least you could do is make yourself useful." Kex'thul froze. His cloaking field was military grade, capable of fooling the most advanced sensors. There was no possible way she could have detected him, yet somehow she had not only noticed his presence, but seemed remarkably unconcerned about it. "I can hear you breathing," she continued, still focused on the atmospheric processor. "Also, you smell like wet leather and disappointment. Are you going to stand there all day, or are you going to help me with this piece of junk?" The universe Kex'thul realized was having a laugh at his expense. He deactivated his cloaking field and rose to his full height, spreading his arms wide in the traditional Vorthak Intimidation display. His claws gleamed in the artificial light, and his fangs dripped with the paralytic venom that had felled countless prey. "Human," he rumbled, his voice carrying the authority of 1,000 successful hunts. "You will come with me. Resist, and I will be forced to demonstrate why my species sits at the apex of the galactic food chain." Zara finally looked up from her work, and Kex'thul was surprised to see that she seemed more annoyed than terrified. "Let me guess," she said, wiping her hands on a rag. "You're here for the whole capture a human thing, right? Like a really twisted version of Pokemon?" "I am here to claim my prize," Kex'thul declared, though he was beginning to suspect that this conversation was not going according to plan. "You have been chosen as my hunting quarry. Submit, and your death will be swift." "Yeah, that's not happening," Zara said, turning back to her work. "Look, I appreciate the whole terrifying space monster aesthetic you've got going on, but I've got 3 atmospheric processors that need repairs, a coffee maker that's achieved sentience and refuses to make anything but decaf, and a deadline that's making my captain increasingly creative with his threats. So unless you're here to help, you're just another thing on my to-do list." Kex'thul blinked. All 4 eyes. Twice. In his 847 years of existence, he had never encountered a response quite like this. Prey species typically reacted to his presence with one of 3 responses: immediate flight, immediate submission, or immediate evacuation of their bowels. Occasionally all 3 simultaneously. "You do not understand," he said, his voice carrying a hint of uncertainty that would have horrified his ancestors. "I am Kex'thul, of the Crimson Talon. I am Apex Predator. I am Death incarnate. I am—" "In my way," Zara finished. "Look, Kex. Can I call you Kex? Great. Here's the thing about being Apex Predator. It's all about efficiency, right? You want to catch me, I want to finish my work. How about we compromise? Help me fix these processors, and I'll consider being captured. Deal?" The proposal was so absurd that Kex'thul's brain temporarily shut down while it attempted to process what he had just heard. The human was negotiating with him, as if he was some sort of service provider rather than a living instrument of death. "You cannot negotiate with death," he said, though his voice lacked its earlier conviction. "Sure I can," Zara replied cheerfully. "I negotiate with death every time I work on this ship. Half the systems are held together with prayer and electrical tape. The other half are actively trying to kill me. You're honestly not even in the top 5 most dangerous things I've dealt with today." As if summoned by her words, a shower of sparks erupted from the atmospheric processor, followed by a sound that could best be described as a dying whale attempting to yodel. Zara didn't even flinch. "See?" she said, gesturing at the sparking machinery. "That's number 4. Number 3 is the waste recycling system that's developed a gambling addiction. Number 2 is the artificial gravity generator that keeps trying to turn the ship into a Mobius strip. And number 1, she paused, looking thoughtful. "Actually, number 1 is probably the autocook that's been sending me threatening messages in 17 different languages." Kex'thul found himself genuinely curious despite his better judgment. "What manner of threats?" "Oh, the usual. I will dice your ingredients into perfect cubes of despair. Your seasoning choices bring shame upon your ancestors, that sort of thing. It's been branching out into food-based existential philosophy lately. Yesterday it asked me if a sandwich is still a sandwich, if it achieves consciousness." "And you work with these machines?" Kex'thul asked, momentarily forgetting that he was supposed to be terrifying. "Work with them, fix them, occasionally have philosophical debates with them," Zara said, pulling out what appeared to be a sonic screwdriver. "It's all part of the job. Speaking of which, if you're going to keep standing there, could you at least hold this while I recalibrate the quantum flux dampener?" She held out a component that was sparking ominously and looked like it might achieve critical mass at any moment. Kex'thul stared at it, then at her, then back at the component. "This device appears to be malfunctioning," he said. "Yeah, they do that. It's like they're having an existential crisis about their own existence. Very philosophical, these quantum flux dampeners. This one's been asking me about the nature of reality for the past 3 hours. Against every instinct screaming at him to complete his hunt and restore his honor, Kex'thul found himself reaching out with one of his forearms to accept the component. The moment his claws made contact with it, the sparking stopped, and the device began to hum contentedly. "Aha," Zara said, looking impressed. "You've got some kind of bioelectric field, don't you? That's actually pretty useful. Most people just shock themselves unconscious when they touch these things." "My species generates a natural electrical field for hunting," Kex'thul said, then immediately regretted providing information about his capabilities to his intended prey. "Cool. Can you hold this other thing while I work on the primary coupling?" And somehow, inexplicably, Kex'thul found himself holding another component while Zara worked. The human moved with practiced efficiency, her small hands darting between controls and connections with the confidence of someone who had spent years making the impossible work through sheer force of will and creative application of profanity. "So," she said, not looking up from her work, "what's your story? Are you here because you're trying to prove something, or is this just a job for you?" "I hunt to earn my name," Kex'thul said, then immediately wondered why he was answering her questions. "Ah, a coming-of-age thing, I get it. Had to do something similar when I was younger, though mine involved less hunting and more trying to keep a warp core from turning into a small star. What happens if you don't catch me?" "I return to my clan in dishonor," Kex'thul admitted. "I remain nameless. I am cast out from proper society." "That sucks," Zara said with genuine sympathy. "Peer pressure's rough, especially when it involves potentially getting someone killed. Have you considered taking up a hobby instead? Stamp collecting, maybe? Less morally ambiguous." "Vorthak do not collect stamps," Kex'thul said stiffly. "Your loss. There's something very zen about organizing things by postal region and date of issue. Very calming. Plus nobody gets eaten." The atmospheric processor gave a final, satisfied hum and began working properly. Zara stepped back, wiping her hands on her coveralls. "Tumble down, 2 to go," she said. "Thanks for the help. Your bioelectric field is really handy for this kind of work. Ever considered a career change?" "I am apex predator," Kex'thul said, though he was beginning to wonder if he was trying to convince her or himself. "Right, but what do you do for fun? I mean, when you're not hunting people?" The question was so unexpected that Kex'thul actually considered it. "I practice combat forms. I study the weaknesses of prey species. I maintain my equipment." "Sounds lonely," Zara observed. "Don't you have friends, family, anyone to talk to besides the voices in your head telling you to hunt things?" "Vorthak do not form emotional attachments," Kex'thul said automatically. "Says who?" "Says our entire culture, our biology, our evolutionary history." "Aha. And how's that working out for you?" Kex'thul opened his mouth to respond, then closed it, then opened it again. The question was simple, but the answer was proving surprisingly elusive. "I am what I am," he said finally. "Sure, but are you happy? Happiness is irrelevant to survival." "Is it though? Because from where I'm standing you look pretty miserable. When's the last time you enjoyed something, really enjoyed it, not just felt satisfied about completing a task?" Kex'thul considered this. "I do not remember." "That's terrible," Zara said, and her voice carried a note of genuine sadness. "Everyone deserves to enjoy something. Life's too short to spend it being miserable all the time." "My species lives for over 3,000 years, Kex'thul pointed out. "Then life's way too long to spend it being miserable. That's even worse." She moved to the second atmospheric processor and began examining it with the same focused attention she had given the first. Kex'thul watched her work, noting the way she moved, the concentration on her face, the quiet satisfaction when she solved a particularly complex problem. "Why are you not afraid of me?" he asked suddenly. Zara paused in her work. "Should I be?" "Yes, I am designed to kill. I am perfect predator. I am death incarnate." "Yeah, you keep saying that. But you're also holding my tools without being asked. You answered my questions about your culture, and you haven't actually tried to hurt me. So either you're a really terrible predator, or you're not as committed to this whole apex killer thing as you think you are." "I am starving," Kex'thul said quietly. "I have not eaten in 47 days. I am desperate." 47 days? Jesus, that's awful. No wonder you're cranky. Are you okay? Do you need medical attention? The concern in her voice was so unexpected that Kex'thul actually took a step backward. You are worried about my well-being? Of course I am. You're clearly suffering. That's not okay, even if you did come here to capture me. I am your predator, Kex'thul said, his voice barely above a whisper. You're also a person, Zara replied. A person who's hungry and desperate and probably feeling pretty awful about the whole situation. That doesn't stop being true just because you're scary looking. Something inside Kex'thul's chest, one of his hearts, possibly all three, began to hurt in a way that had nothing to do with hunger. I do not understand humans. Join the club. We don't understand ourselves half the time, but that's okay. Understanding is overrated anyway. Sometimes it's enough to just be decent to each other, even when one of us is trying to capture the other, especially then. Look, I'm not going to pretend I'm thrilled about the whole being hunted thing, but I can see you're struggling. Maybe there's another way to handle this. There is no other way, Kex'thul said. I must return with proof of my hunt, or I am dishonored. What kind of proof? A trophy. Something that proves I bested a human in combat. Zara considered this, then reached into her tool belt and pulled out what appeared to be a small cylindrical device. Would this work? Kex'thul examined it. What is it? Quantum flux regulator. Completely useless for anything except holding quantum flux, which doesn't actually exist. But it's got my DNA signature all over it, and it's the kind of technical doodad that would be really hard to fake. Plus, it's got this little plaque that says Property of Zara Chen, Chief Engineer UES Determination. Would that count as a trophy? You would give me this freely? Why not? I've got about 12 more of them and they're all equally useless. Consider it a cultural exchange. Kex'thul stared at the device, then at Zara, then back at the device. You are giving me what I need to claim victory over you. I'm giving you what you need to go home with your dignity intact. There's a difference. But I will have cheated. I will not have actually bested you in combat. Did you come here to prove you could beat me up? Or did you come here to earn your name and rejoin your people? Kex'thul paused. I came here to earn my name, then take the trophy. Go home. Tell them you outwitted a human instead of outfighting one. It's not technically a lie, and it's probably more impressive anyway. Why would you do this for me? Zara shrugged. Because you helped me fix my atmospheric processor. Because you're clearly having a rough time. Because everyone deserves a chance to go home. She paused. And because I think you're probably a decent person under all that apex predator stuff. I am not a person, Kex'thul said automatically. I am Vorthak. Same thing, different packaging. Kex'thul looked at the quantum flux regulator in his claws, then at the human who had just solved a problem that had seemed impossible only moments before. I do not deserve this kindness. Nobody deserves kindness, Zara said. That's what makes it kindness. If people had to earn it, it would just be payment. My people will not understand. Your people don't have to understand. They just have to accept that you completed your task and came home. The rest is between you and whatever passes for your conscience. Kex'thul carefully placed the quantum flux regulator in his equipment pouch. I will tell them that I encountered a human who was more dangerous than any weapon. That's not exactly. 'Tis true, Kex'thul interrupted. You have defeated me without raising a hand. You have shown me mercy when I deserved none. You have made me question everything I believed about strength and victory. If that is not dangerous, I do not know what is. Zara smiled. When you put it that way, I guess I am pretty scary. Terrifying, Kex'thul agreed. I will warn my people to avoid humans. I will tell them that your species possesses weapons that can destroy without causing harm, and that wisdom lies in seeking other prey. You'd do that. I will do that. It is the least I can do to repay your kindness. Kex'thul turned to leave, then paused. Zara Chen of the UES Determination. Thank you. You're welcome. Try to eat something when you get home, okay? And maybe think about that hobby thing. Life's too short to spend it hunting people. Life is too long to spend it being miserable, Kex'thul said, repeating her earlier words. I will remember this. He activated his cloaking field and departed, leaving Zara alone with her atmospheric processors and her thoughts. She watched the space where he had been standing, then shook her head and got back to work. Humans, she muttered to herself. Apparently we're the galaxy's accidental therapists. 3 days later, Kex'thul stood before the Council of Elders, holding the quantum flux regulator high above his head. The device caught the light from the ceremonial flames, its surface gleaming with what his people interpreted as the evidence of hard-won victory. I have hunted the human, he declared. I have faced their greatest weapon and emerged victorious. I claim my name and my place among the hunters of our people. The elders examined the trophy, noted its authenticity, and declared his hunt successful. Kex'thul received his name, Kex'thul the Cunning, master of the impossible hunt, and was welcomed back into the fold with honor and ceremony. But later, in the privacy of his quarters, Kex'thul found himself thinking about atmospheric processes and quantum flux regulators and the strange human who had shown him that victory could sometimes look like defeat and that strength could sometimes look like mercy. He thought about happiness and hobbies and the possibility that there might be more to existence than the endless cycle of hunt and kill and hunt again. And for the first time in his 847 years of life, Kex'thul the Cunning, apex predator and master of the impossible hunt, began to wonder if perhaps the humans were right about something after all. The universe, in its infinite wisdom and apparent sense of humor, had indeed organized intelligent life through a simple food chain, but, as any human could tell you, the most dangerous predator isn't always the one with the biggest teeth. Sometimes, it's the one who offers you a sandwich.